This empty lot in North Houston has a story to tell because it's where a Houston firefighter died.
What's the emergency?
Emergency, the house is on fire, please. Somebody's in the house.
Where's the patient at?
This is the house that once stood here and what it looked like when Captain Darren Unruh rushed inside.
It's a terrible sense of dread when you think someone is going to die.
Oh my God!
The firefighters' co-workers still don't know how it happened, but when Unruh went in the back door looking for victims, he became one. They dragged his lifeless body from the building 5 minutes later, did CPR for 6 minutes more.
District 34, you have a mayday at your event.
And he was unrecognizable. Totally unrecognizable.
His protective mask was gone. The burns were third degree.
It just didn't look like the person that I knew.
It took 11 minutes total to get a pulse again, to bring him back from the dead. Then doctors kept him in a coma for 5 long weeks.
It was a horrible sight.
Given the burns to his face, his scorched lungs, and those 11 minutes dead, his wife didn't know how much of her husband would ever wake up.
There was a fear of, him being brain damaged. I was terrified of that.
How are you still here?
Yeah,
We don't know.
the grace of God. It is a darn good question. And why am I still here?
But this is Darren Unruh today. It's been 2.5 long years.
Taking it one day at a time.
Skin grafts to rebuild his eyelids, a cornea transplant for a damaged left eye, months in a protective mask, months of pain, and at least a few days of not wanting to live at all.
It's difficult being burned. It's hell. It's hell being burned. And I remember not wanting to be here. And I remember sitting on my bed thinking, Darren, you can't quit. You have to keep on pushing. You have to.
But his survival isn't the only reason we're sharing his story. You probably noticed we're talking with Darren in a fire station, Station 68. He's in a captain's uniform again.
I'm a dead man walking. I have a second chance at life.
And he's taking that second chance right back into the line of fire.
I think it's my reasonable service. And I wanted to be able to look back on my life and be proud of, I was a firefighter. I think this is who you are. I think this job is who you are.
There's something else you should know about this street where Darren Unruh almost died. When he decided to come back to be a firefighter again, the very first call he got was on this very same street, just a few doors down.
And I said, Lord, what are you trying to tell me?
Same street.
Same street.
But he fought through that too and believes that with the help of his family, his doctors, his church, and his fellow firefighters, this is where he's supposed to be.
I said, Darren, you were dead. So you had nothing to do but get better from that point. You were dead for like 10 minutes. It's nothing short of a miracle.
I've learned that he has a inner strength.
So what do you see when you look at the face and the scars of Darren Unruh? He sees a miracle. His wife sees something else too.
This is a true test of perseverance, and he's truly had to overcome great obstacles, and he's worthy of my admiration.
As a husband, a father, and a firefighter willing to lay it on the line again.
I definitely believe that is part of my reasonable service. Definitely part of my reasonable service.
We have everybody accounted for.
It's a thankless job, but it's an awesome job.
In Southwest Houston, Kevin Reese, KHOU 11 News.
Tonight, a Russian spacecraft is hurling towards the International Space Station and should arrive on Wednesday. And an American astronaut is on board for the first time since NASA retired the shuttle program.
The Soyuz rocket blasted off from Kazakhstan early this morning, Russian time. KHOU 11 News reporter Jeremy Diesel was there.
Still snowing quite a bit.
From remote cameras, the launch area is clear, not from the viewing location. Russian media say it's never snowed like this on a launch day.
I mean, you can't see much, so you're listening to the intercom and listening to what's going on. So
Johnson Space Center employee John McBride and the rest of the Houston team hear it before they see it. Then, like a flash, it is up.
they head toward the International
International Space Station.
Clear as day on the remote cameras. Far from it here.
420.
The NASA crew crowd together not for warmth, but for translation. Out of sight here.
Stage is running as expected.
But a powerful view to Burbank family friend Brian McKay.
That's great. Worth it. Worth it, worth it, worth it. Great time. Neat to see that thing go.
As Russian and NASA cameras capture the capsule racing to space, the NASA crew here depends on old-fashioned play-by-play.
Pitch, yaw, and roll are nominal.
They're blind to the ascent, faces etched in worry and wonder.
The vehicle is stable.
Until orbit.
Spacecraft separation confirmed.
Right.
Vehicle is in orbit.
But full relief will have to wait.
4 months, specifically for Dan. So when they get it, you know, the greatest thing is when they're back in the office, back home, safe and sound with their family. That's when I breathe a sigh of relief, actually.
But this is an historic start. At the Baikonur Cosmodrome, Jeremy Diesel, KHOU 11 News.
We found local police agencies failing to investigate child abuse cases that involve serious injury or neglect of the very young. Investigative reporter Jeremy Rogowski joins us now with what he's uncovered.
Greg, Lucy, we're talking about horrific injuries to those unable to defend themselves, babies, toddlers, and young children. And when it comes to justice, well, watch who's dropping the ball.
The cameras are rolling for a conference on child abuse, and at the mic, Harris County Sheriff Adrian Garcia is talking tough.
We have no mercy for people who will victimize children.
But are his department's actions as strong as his words? Take this little girl, less than 2 months old, but already a life filled with horror and pain. Doctors found 24 injuries. Her ribs snapped 15 times, her legs broken 6 times, and bruises nearly everywhere. And how did her mother, Amanda Duesterberg, explain it all? She repeatedly said, quote, "I thought she just had a cold."
It was prolonged abuse, and it happened on more than one occasion.
A juvenile court appointed attorney Gary Pollan
to get the child away from the alleged perpetrators, that is her parents.
So a judge ordered emergency protective custody of the baby.
But what about the crime itself, a vicious case of child abuse? Well, the I-Team discovered a real shocker, that in some cases of suspected abuse and neglect, police either failed to investigate quickly or deliberately chose not to investigate them at all.
In the Duesterberg case,
CPS made a referral to law enforcement to deal with it.
But then, Pollan says, not 1 or 2, but 5 months went by and nothing was happening.
I call it going into Never Never Land. It went in and then it never comes out.
And through these confidential CPS documents, the I-Team ID'd other cases lost in Never Never Land by the Harris County Sheriff's Department. Like a 1-month-old girl with a broken arm and 2 rib fractures. Her file sat at the Harris County Sheriff's Department for 1.5 years because the original detective was transferred to another unit and it wasn't reassigned. Sheriff's Lieutenant Ruben Diaz.
Then how do you have a case that goes on a desk for 1.5 years?
I can't sit there and talk to you about that right now because I have to look at it.
We have forwarded this case to your office. Doesn't that bother you? Are you okay with that?
No, I'm not okay with any of that.
Consider another case the Sheriff's Department handled.
What happened there?
Well, it was a mishap.
Mishap?
Yes, sir.
What Damian Horn calls a mishap was a broken leg on his 10-month-old son. A break only possible, doctors said, by kicking, hitting, or chopping. But the parents' explanation?
He fell off the couch in his car seat.
So you might think there was a full-blown criminal investigation, right?
Did police ever come around?
They came around when we was at the hospital.
After the hospital, what happened to police?
Nothing.
Did police ever come by?
No.
So who's suffering? Who's losing on this?
He's Stephen Lightfoot.
The child's losing.
With Justice for Children, a Houston-headquartered nonprofit that advocates for abused kids in courts across the country.
In all these cases, whenever there's systemic failure, ultimately that's who loses.
And in some, the cops choose not to investigate at all. like a referral to the Houston Police Department at this Southeast Houston home.
They said you all are providing marijuana cigarettes to the kids?
All of this is based upon a false allegation.
But without an investigation, we may never know.
Did the police ever come by?
No.
Do an investigation?
No.
Why wasn't this case assigned for investigation?
So we sat down with HPD's physical abuse squad.
This was we got very vague, limited information on this.
But check out another case HPD passed on. Texas Children's Hospital called it in. A 3-month-old with a head nearly the size of a volleyball due to water on the brain. The likelihood of disability or death, doctors wrote, was high. They called it a case of medical neglect, saying the mother offered poor excuses for not seeking medical care, such as there were long lines at the clinic.
It could be argued that, yes, we could look at this in the criminal courts.
But again, they didn't.
Why not err on the side of caution and go ahead and assign an investigator to this?
We generally do try to take that approach.
But you didn't hear.
I mean, it could be argued that from our experience that we didn't have strong basis for criminal prosecution.
But look at the big picture. Last year, CPS referred more than 18,000 cases of abuse and neglect to HPD. So how many did the department investigate? Less than 2,400, or around 13%. Yet HPD maintains
these cases are being properly reviewed.
And what about the sheriff's department and that little girl with all the broken bones? The judge was tired of waiting.
The judge asked me if I had a doctor who would be willing to investigate.
Was this your job to do this?
It became my job because no one else was doing it.
The result? Criminal charges filed on both parents. They're awaiting trial.
If we can't protect our children with law enforcement, what's the point of what we're doing here?
Now, Harris County Sheriff's Lieutenant Ruben Diaz said his squad was, quote, constantly doing its job in the Duesterberg case and claims it did not take a judge to get them to do their work. As for the allegations against Damian Horn, well, the Sheriff's Department told us that case was closed because the department decided the injuries were accidental.
We want to take you straight to breaking news. We want to go to downtown Houston, where there is a live picture here of the scene, the Occupy movement and a confrontation with Houston police. You see officers on the scene, officers there on horseback. This is the Occupy Houston movement. They were making a move down the I-45 or down Travis Street toward the I-45 bridge over White Oak Bayou, but suddenly they just took a stop there by the Spaghetti Warehouse. Many of them started sitting in the middle of the street on Travis, and we understand at this point that police have called for a paddy wagon because this won't stand at this point.
Occupy organizers calling this the N17 day of action, joining protesters in New York as well as Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and Portland. Our own Rux Russell is live at the scene in downtown Houston with the latest there. Rux.
Yeah, we're on the Travis Street Bridge downtown, and we are watching arrests unfold as we speak. We've got large demonstrations of civil disobedience out here. This is the Occupy Houston crowd, and they assembled in a park about 4 or 5 blocks from here. The crowd continued to grow over the last hour or so, probably swelling to a crowd of about 200, and then they started to march down this way. They hit Travis Street, came down, and as you can see by these pictures, you've got a large police presence, some mounted police. You got a paddy wagon here, and we've seen so far at least 3 arrests go down, but the civil disobedience continues. I think what you have going on primarily is people attempting to block this intersection, and so the police are systematically moving one after another. In fact, if you can come back to our picture on the ground, there's another arrest taking place as we speak. And this is arrest number 4. We've seen kind of all kinds of people being arrested, young, older, middle-aged, different races so far. So a pretty unified movement at this point, a coalition that I guess you could say has grown because there's a lot of students out here, some union representatives who are out here as well. For a long time, there's been the criticism of this movement that they didn't really have any clear demands. Well, I spoke with an organizer here. He said, here's the demands. They want jobs, not they want jobs, not budget cuts. They want schools repaired, roads and bridges repaired. They want children educated. They want teachers back in the classrooms, and they're calling for politicians to, in their words, keep their hands off Medicare and Medicaid. So those are the demands. The methodology in terms of how they get there remains somewhat unclear at this point. Ma'am, let me just ask you, I'm from Channel 11. You've got this sticker, the 99%. Can you tell me why you're here?
Yeah, I'm here because I think there's a very appropriate chant going around. Banks got bailed out, we got sold out. I think right now people are realizing that all these cuts, all these bills that are being passed to cut sort of our jobs, our benefits. None of it is coming back to us. It's going to the top 1%. It's not exactly having a great effect for all the people that are out here. There's a lot of unemployed people. There's a lot of people like me who've been looking for a job.
So here's the question. It's a nice list of demands, but how do you get there from here? I mean, what's the methodology?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a lot of people out here right now, so that's one way. And I think people who've seen us, a lot of people are agreeing with us, people that are passing by, and I think everyone who's just seen this on TV needs to come out and join us, because I think we can call our senators, we can do all that all day, but until they see just this raw people power, that's going to be, and that's always been what's really affected social change.
Okay, but blocking the intersection, rush hour, it may turn some people off. I mean, is that a concern?
Well, I think when you look at all the stuff that's been going on, a bailout for the banks in the billions, Bank of America not even having to pay federal taxes and cutting off now thousands of workers.
Are you concerned about, turning people off by blocking the intersection at rush hour, things like that?
Well, I think, me personally, no, because I think that all kinds of tactics have been used for the last few hundreds of years, and none of them have really, the ones that have actually really made a difference have not really gone by the rules. And I think right now the important thing is people are out here demonstrating our power. We don't have the money, but we do have the people.
Thank you very much. So one voice in the crowd out here, a crowd of probably 200 and probably growing at this point. That's the latest. I'd send it back to you.
All right, Rux, thank you very much. You'll continue to follow that. So this is part of a bigger wave that continues to sweep the country. In New York today, 175 people arrested. The arrests continue down there in downtown Houston. We will continue to follow this and bring you more in later editions of 11 News.
It's getting terrible every day.
Just go for a ride in Houston traffic.
The traffic in Houston is bad.
And prepare for an earful.
It sucks.
It's really a mess sometimes, especially on the West Loop. It just gets a little bit frustrating.
They're just crazy. I really just think someone's gonna rear end me.
Michelle Parrish has a bird's eye view to Houston's highway hysteria.
How often do you hear horns blaring here? You just heard one right now. Every 5 seconds.
She works near the intersection of Hillcroft and Westheimer, where she's seen road rage wrecks.
People getting this close to your car just to cut you off, to make sure that they make that light. No one wants to sit at it, but we all do.
And anger on the road can turn deadly. Just look at what happened on March 8th when road rage ended in gunfire and death.
I'm 6'2", 240 pounds. She had no problems getting in my face.
Those who know Rushanette Houston say they were not surprised to hear she was involved in the death of 49-year-old Carol Grant.
Police say road rage left both women angry, so they pulled into this parking lot to fight it out. And authorities say Houston then shot Grant. She hasn't been charged in the death because she says she fired in self-defense.
And that got us thinking about road rage, and we got our hands on accident numbers from the Texas Department of Transportation. And Hillcroft and Westheimer was one of Houston's worst intersections for road rage.
We're probably averaging like 4 calls a day related to road rage.
Houston Police Assistant Chief Brian Lumpkin says road rage is on the cops' radar too, and he knows where it's happening most.
Specifically, all your freeways, your 610 loop, and of course Westheimer.
TxDOT's numbers dating back to 2009 also show the Southwest Freeway near Kirby as a problem area for road rage. Another hot spot, the East Tex Freeway near Tidwell. Lumpkin says slowing this growing trend on the road is easy. Just use common sense.
Don't escalate the situation. Don't do anything that's going to make that person even more angry.
Call 911 for me. Oh my God, he's getting out of the car.
And incidents like this one we found on YouTube show road rage cases are tough for police to pin down because they often lead to more violent crimes when punches start flying.
Everywhere from a simple assault where someone just shoves you to an aggravated assault where somebody actually injures you
is infuriating.
Michelle Parrish doesn't need our research to worry about road rage.
I would not be surprised at all. Experiencing the road rage myself every day.
If drivers could catch her view at the corner of Westheimer and Hillcroft every day, they'd know anger could be just a stoplight away. Christine Haas, KHOU 11 News.
On the outskirts of Santa Fe in rural Galveston County, a place called Oleander Farms. The name seems innocuous enough, but consider this.
This is a major cockfighting operation. They run full-page ads in the underground magazines, and the name Oleander Farms has been prominent in cockfighting circles going back to the 1950s.
Police say this is the man behind it all, Jimmy Lee Bradshaw, something he denies. You're not raising them to fight?
Hell no. No, they outlawed that years ago.
What do you think about cockfighting?
What I think about it?
Yeah.
Well, all you're doing if you cockfight is mistreat your supper, you know. But I don't participate in it. I'm too old and too worn out.
But not too old and worn out, apparently, to care for some 300 birds.
His birds are healthy birds.
He has good reason for that.
And he has good reason for that. That's his livelihood. That's his stock. And the more healthy they are, the better money they bring him.
As much as $600 apiece, say police. The raid also turned up cockfighting paraphernalia and a cockfighting pit. It comes after a lengthy investigation by the Humane Society of the United States documenting the blood sport across the state. Cockfighting has been illegal in all 50 states for some time now. But here in Texas, it was perfectly legal to attend a cockfight or even raise birds for fighting until September of this year when a new law went into effect.
Cockfighting is an extreme form of animal cruelty, and it has no socially redeemable value whatsoever. These animals suffer and they die just so that people can have something to bet on.
In other words,
animal cruelty leads to cruelty on other planes.
It's about much more than mistreating your supper. Brad Woodard, KHOU 11 News.
Waller County is getting wallowed.
I'm not leaving till the fat lady sings. You make a decision as to what you can do and what you can't do.
As Joe Thomas rushed to save her precious horses, her hands shook. The wall of smoke was creeping closer.
All the way past that house to that house is where my husband was raised. And it may not be standing when we come back.
Higher winds fueled this fire around 3 in the afternoon.
Do you live down here?
Yeah, I live on
Pull off the road here and let me see some ID.
Forcing sheriff's deputies to evacuate more than 2,000 people in minutes.
There's a lot of friends that I have that live out there that have homes that are no longer there. A lot of livestock that's gone.
Ken Miller has seen fires before, but not like this, not this close.
This is scary knowing that your home and your animals and everything's at risk right now.
Animals are on the minds of many in this rural community.
Well, it's my daughter's first horse, so it's pretty important.
From the air, the fire was even more impressive.
If you were in front of it, it'd scare you. I mean, it's big and bad.
So big and bad, William Compass left reluctantly. He's spending the night in his RV.
The smoke and ashes were landing on my house. So my son wouldn't leave unless I left, so I had to get out.
Looks like he did get out just in time.
Even for the toughest of cowboys, this fire is a heartbreaker.
I mean, this is my life. Some people are just animals, but these are my friends.
On Tuesday morning, more than a dozen horses in Fred Goslin's barn died in a fire.
I don't have words that can even describe it. It's like an unbelievable nightmare.
Originally, they thought 14 horses were trapped, but it seems they were wrong. A horse named Whiskey made it out alive.
She's one of the few that actually did survive. You know, now all we want to do is help her.
Maybe she was hurt or got spooked and ran off, but the 7-year-old half-Arabian vanished. She belongs to Fred's daughter.
You can put out an Amber Alert on a child, but I don't know how you put out an Amber Alert on a horse.
This old cowboy suspects someone might have snatched their precious whiskey.
That's as far as we could get.
He's hoping that person is watching now.
I would hate for somebody to think they could just sell this horse and make money. I mean, she deserves to have her life back.
And if Whiskey does come home, maybe, just maybe, this heartbroken cowboy can get back to being tough again.
We have told you about radiation in our drinking water. Tonight, we've discovered the radiation in Texas water is far worse than most could ever imagine.
In fact, so bad, it turns pipes radioactive. In fact, even junkyards won't take these metal pipes.
Tonight, an I-Team exclusive that has state regulators scrambling.
Investigative reporter Mark Greenblatt is back with a discovery that affects hundreds of thousands of Texans. Mark?
Greg, Lucy, it's something you'd expect to see in post-earthquake Japan. Home water heaters, pipes, water tanks, all so radioactive that they set off Geiger counters, and scrapyards turn the metal away. What we found has affected city officials crying out for help.
Well, we've got a Geiger counter here. Let's see what it shows.
And what it shows is a warning.
10 parts to 11 and more.
Of radiation.
It's going far, it's going way out.
Coming off of this metal pipe and others like it, dug up from the Texas soil.
It's not as if these pipes have been in the ground for decades.
No, you're talking 4 to 5 years.
So what made them this way? Drinking water.
And that's what's causing the radiation.
Correct.
Water for the homes and businesses of Brady, Texas. Water that made these pipes so radioactive, now even the junkyard won't take them. Something that worries city manager James Minor.
What does that say to you?
It just brings lots of questions into my mind as to what's that doing to the people drinking it. That says there's an issue.
A serious issue.
Serious issue.
So what's going on? You see, Brady gets its tap water from deep underground. The problem is that ground has lots of radioactive radium inside of it, a naturally occurring element that gets in the region's drinking water in amounts well over federal legal limits. It's a central Texas health hazard that state officials have known about for years, and one that it seems they tried to forget.
You actually have a Geiger counter here?
But Ralph Carlisle says he's reminded every day.
Yes, sir.
At the scrapyard he manages near Brady.
But anything over 6,
you turn away.
I turn away.
Like home water heaters, water tanks, and water distribution pipes that are too radioactive.
People worried about cancer out here?
Well, sure, yeah. Not only cancer, I mean, just anything else that could come their way.
In fact, he says
nobody drinks the water.
You now drink bottled water.
That's all we'll drink, yeah.
But what really worries him are the kids.
Child, you can tell 40 times a day not to drink that water, and he's going to do it. Us adults, of course, we know, and drink at your own risk.
And even worse, says Carlisle.
We're not just talking about the city of Brady here.
No, sir. It's all the surrounding areas.
Take a look. Recent state water tests for radium show water wells in Melvin with nearly 2 times the allowable limit. Brady, more than 3 times the radium limit. North San Saba, more than 4 times. Millersview, with 11 times the limit for radium. And towns across the region similarly affected.
What these data show is that the amount of radionuclides in our water are so high that they could cause cancer, birth defects, or kidney disease.
Tom Smitty Smith is with Public Citizen, a government watchdog group.
Study after study has indicated that these are real threats.
But what we discovered at the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or TCEQ, really concerned Smith.
What we see is a pattern in practice at TCU covering up unfavorable data.
What's Smith talking about? The I-Team uncovered this white paper from 2001 on Texas's radiation and water problems, written by the agency's own scientists, that found over 200,000 Texans drink from public water systems with relatively high levels of radium, and states an additional 1 out of every 400 people would experience cancer in some areas of Texas, posing a potentially serious health concern. And one of the worst spots for radium contamination, it named the Hickory Aquifer that supplies much of central Texas.
Here you have water flowing through pipes that look like this, that are peg and Geiger counters. People are drinking the water out of that.
So we paid a visit to the TCEQ.
What do you make of that?
And their manager for public water, Elston Johnson.
We need to look into it. Like I said, it's the first I've heard of it.
So what about the state's own findings on radium?
This white paper says that all the communities that are taking water out of the Hickory Aquifer without filtering it for radiation, that the drinking water would be unusable out of the Hickory.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
But I sent this ahead of time, long before I'm sitting here today. Have you not reviewed this paper?
What you're talking, haven't seen it.
But hold on. After our interview with Johnson, we found this letter from TCEQ files, dated April 2010, talking about the very same white paper and forwarding it, in fact, to the Texas Radiation Advisory Board. And who signed it? Elston H. Johnson, manager of public drinking water. And yet, he told us.
This paper has never crossed your desk as the manager?
Nope, this is April 2001, and so, you know.
And in advance of this interview, when I forwarded this ahead of time, this has never crossed your desk?
I don't remember looking at that, so.
Now, for what it's worth, the city manager for Brady says he doesn't care who's responsible. He just wants help for the sake of his citizens. State officials tell us that the U.S. EPA is now doing a study on the health effects of radioactive water pipes, but the EPA is not commenting. Tune in tomorrow night as our investigation widens about what some call a conspiracy involving the biggest politicians in the state and your water.
When I first met Amanda Womack, I had a hard time with her story. After all, I had never heard anything like it before. Her fiancé had a tough time with it too.
When I told him, he was like, yeah, right.
3 weeks ago, while making dinner, Womack sent her stepson to the T&W Quick Stop to pick up some sodas. One of them was a Dr. Pepper, her favorite. That night, Womack opened it at dinner, and suddenly...
I was belching gas, so I said, no, this is not right.
Her fiancé, Kevin Hamilton, grabbed the 20-ounce bottle.
And when he smelled it, he was like, we need to go to the emergency room now, because it smelled just like gas.
Womack said the soda's cap wasn't tampered with. It was sealed. But on the bottom of the bottle, she says, there was a white spiderweb-looking spot about the size of a nickel. Hamilton decided to stop by the store to tell the clerk what had happened.
As they proceed to go to the back where the sodas was, they pulling the bottles down. The bottles looked just like mine. When they opened them, smelled just like gas.
By the time she got to the hospital, Womack says she was getting dizzy and throwing up. She said doctors smelled the Dr. Pepper and even called poison control, seeking answers. Womack says it was scary because they didn't know what chemicals they were dealing with. And now, 3 weeks later, Hamilton says he's still trying to find out how this happened and was hoping the city's health department would help. But
I was informed by the city of Houston that I may need to get a test conducted on my own.
He took the Dr. Pepper and another one from the store to an independent lab. How much did that cost you?
$750.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that would hurt my pocketbook, my friend.
Killed my pocket.
He said a company called Dixie Labs confirmed his worst fears. Dixie's report said the drinks had components of gasoline inside, chemicals such as naphthalene and benzene. After hearing the reports, Dr. Pepper and the city health department moved in.
Hey, do y'all have any of those Dr. Peppers?
The clerk said yes. Underneath the counter, he had 9 waiting to be picked up by the health department. It, along with Dr. Pepper, found at least 22 bottles of contaminated soda. And for the first time, we got a chance to see what Womack and Hamilton were talking about. The white spiderweb-looking spot on the bottom. How did this happen? Were the sodas intentionally tampered with? Was it an accident?
Is it something that an employee maybe done, or, who knows?
Yeah. The health department would only tell 11 News it was not its responsibility to find out how it happened. But in its final report labeled Resolved, it says the bottles were not contaminated at the Dr. Pepper facility, but could have been contaminated at a third-party location or at the store. It claims sodas that come in contact with a substance like gasoline can absorb it through the plastic bottles. Is that what happened here?
I'm actually hoping that this was the only bad batch and we got it all.
Yeah, but we don't know that.
We don't know.
We may never know.
Bad news, it's so often said, travels fast. And on the afternoon of April 7th, it found its way to Northam Drive in Tomball. Brushed past the children playing in the street and approached the front door of the Kalish family.
My doorbell rang, and when you see 2 Marines standing at your front door, all I could say was, oh my God. He's dead. So that was at 3:45. I called my husband. I said, get home now.
It brought me to my knees. And they let me vent in anguish for a while. And then they told me, Mr. Kalish, we want you to know that your son is still alive.
It was bad news, but it wasn't the worst news. A mere 12 hours earlier, their son Kenny, a dog handler in the Marine Corps, had been blown up while searching for IEDs on foot patrol. He was due to come home in just a month.
He's lost both legs and he's lost his left arm. He is in a coma.
With his photos spread before us on the kitchen table, a grieving father sees them in a way he's never seen them before.
Well, the thing about these photos, this photo here, he'll never be able to put his left arm around me again.
There is also the pose he'll never be able to strike with his left arm again, the hat he'll never grasp with his left hand again, and the dog he'll never be able to hold with his left hand again.
Never is a pretty strong word, but it's reality.
Another reality, the bickering over the budget on Capitol Hill. It all seems so trivial to the Kalishes now.
And my son just gave up 3 limbs. They didn't give up nothing.
And a grieving mother just wishes the war would end.
But we're ready for the war to end in Washington, because that's how I look at it. They are at war.
And that, she says, is where the peace needs to start.
So now we're confirmed we got 2 suspects inside, correct?
In our search for a bank robber, for a man who could tell us what makes a bank robber tick, we ended up in Amarillo with a robber and a story.
Kind of a quiet corner of the world up here most of the time, isn't it?
Really quiet.
You might not expect.
You know, I've never been violent where I beat people up or shoot them or stab them or anything.
His name is Randy Laird. He has a rap sheet a few decades long, starting with a grocery store in Conroe and ending with 3 bank robberies in Houston.
It's desperate people do desperate things in desperate times.
Westheimer. So desperate that after his last bank, a Bank of America on Westheimer, his getaway car was a Metro bus.
Just really got desperate. You'll do anything for the drug. Yeah, I'm high, and didn't think about anything except my next fix. You know, it's crazy, but that's what you do, is crazy things.
And research suggests that up to 75% of all bank robbers are like Randy, motivated by drugs, trying to get enough money for their next score. And the FBI says they score often up to $43 million taken in this country last year, with only about $8 million of that actually recovered from robbers like Randy, who prefer a bank next to a freeway.
Easy access to either get lost in a neighborhood or easy access to a freeway.
But he always had his eyes open for the banks with the worst security.
Because there's a Houston police lady working security with her feet propped up on the table, and she was probably 100 pounds overweight. And she's got the Houston Chronicle reading it and eating a bag of popcorn. And I said, I just got to do this.
But this is where Randy's story takes an unexpected turn. A heart attack in prison, quadruple bypass surgery, and they let him out early. Which is why we found him on the front porch of that mobile home in Amarillo.
It was time to change, do something for somebody else. So now I try to give back.
And he gives back here.
God bless y'all. Yes, sir. God bless you, brother.
He took us under a downtown Amarillo bridge, a tent city.
You want any more food?
Where he and his wife Janice hand out food and clothing to the homeless.
Thank you.
There's a few still that care, and you know, it makes us feel good to know that.
You got plenty to stay warm with tonight?
By the way, we should better introduce you to his wife.
They're bringing all different sizes.
Because she just happens to be...
I'm a vice president of a bank.
Yes, a bank vice president, married to a man who has robbed more than one.
I think the guy that he is now is the guy that he really has always been. At the time, he did some things that were not good, but I know that he's a good, loving person, and he cares a lot for other people. I don't question him because I know his heart.
Something's better for you tomorrow, believe that.
Something better will come along.
Yeah, it will.
The story of a repentant bank robber like this is rare. Randy knows that. So he offers this advice to anyone desperate enough to be a bank robber too.
My mom used to always tell me the chickens always come home to roost, and they do. Yes, you may get away with it once or twice, but at some point they're going to get you or kill you.
And a dozen are killed in the act by police each year, long before they get a story like this. In Amarillo, Kevin Reese, KHOU 11 News.
KHOU 11 News starts now.
Tonight, it is a race against the flames as homeowners forced from their houses wait to see what is left.
I'm scared. I'm scared to death. When the tops of those pines caught on fire, it's like gasoline, and they just exploded in flames.
Crews are struggling to get a handle on more than 60 wildfires that have ignited in Texas in the last 2 days.
Tonight, we are right in the middle of the fires that are tearing through the state.
You're looking at video just into our newsroom of the fire burning in Montgomery and Grimes counties. Good evening. I'm Len Cannon.
And I'm Sherman Chow. Greg is off tonight. This is what the wildfire looks like from the air. It now roughly covers 1,600 acres. It sparked near Magnolia, but tonight has moved through western Montgomery County and into Grimes County. In the last hour, Magnolia ISD has announced it is canceling all classes tomorrow.
Several neighborhoods have been evacuated. West of Magnolia, people have been ordered out of River Park Ranch, Walnut Bend, Ranch Crest, Magnolia West, and Remington Trails.
We are covering all the angles from here to Bastrop County, where the state's largest fire is raging.
But let's start closest to home with KHOU 11 News reporter Alex Sands live at one of the command centers near Plantersville. That's in Grimes County. Alex?
Len, as we've been showing you all night, this fire is moving fast, spreading quickly and furiously across this part of southeast Texas. To give you a sense of how tough things have been for firefighters here, they are fighting the wind and the weather and fighting a brush fire and a tree fire. Everything is on fire. So difficult, they're having a very hard time getting the resources they need to even fight this fire. The scene earlier was frantic, as you said. So many counties, the fire going from several hundred acres burning to more than 1,600 in 3 counties now. The scene here along FM 1774 to your Todd Mission, one of people being forced from their homes, going from one staging area to the other. This happens several times throughout the day. And the question on their minds is, now what? What happens next? They've been staring at the sky, watching the smoke billow, wondering if they'd have a home to come to. And for a time today, we saw ash raining from the sky. That was part of what they were seeing today here. From Air 11, more of the same. The latest now on the conditions of some of these homes. At least 20 burned, a fire truck burned, and at least 1 firefighter hurt fighting this fire. So many people, so many questions. They're having a very tough time tonight.
My niece called me, I called my husband, and within 45 minutes, they were evacuating us.
Yeah.
Told us mandatory evacuation.
Sky almost instantly turned black.
Everything's going to end up burning.
Well, I'm scared and I'm worried and I'm concerned about the people and the animals and our stuff, and what can you do?
Firefighters, of course, doing what they can, but only so much. The Texas Forest Service is so busy fighting fires elsewhere in Texas, they have few of any resources they can send this hour, though that may change these coming days. The U.S. Forest Service is stepping in, led at Sherman, to offer whatever help they can tonight.
Yeah, tough night, Alex. Where are the shelters, by the way, and do you know if a lot of people are taking advantage of them?
It's really a mix. There are quite a few people out here right now. They've been here for close to 7 hours watching this from FM 1774. There is a shelter at Magnolia High School, one of the community centers not too far from here. The Red Cross is also helping, letting people stay with them, if you will, setting up cots and accommodations as best they can to make sure that people have a place to stay these next several days, assuming this does last as long as many people think it will, to have at least some comfort from home. But as we've been watching all day, people taking what they can, such a last-minute rush to get out of here. They're bracing for what could be many, many tough days ahead.
Right. Alex, this is the same area where back in June they lost 5,000 acres, dozens of structures. What's the attitude out there now for folks?
You know, a lot of folks are saying, why? Really, again, they're in disbelief. The other fire, as you know, was just to the north and west of here near Plantersville. We're about 4 or 5 miles away from there. That fire, as you know, burned for many days, damaging homes, injuring firefighters, injuring some people here in southeast Texas. They're at a loss, to be frank. They've known how dry things are. They've heard the warnings, but they're having a hard time believing it's happening yet again, really in a span of just 2 or 3 months.
All right, Alex Sands live out in Grimes County. Thank you.
KHOU 11 News reporter Jeremy Diesel is at another command center at Magnolia West High School.
And Jeremy, you actually went behind the fire line with crews right up next to the flames?
Yeah, we got very close back to the fire. We'll show you those pictures in just a minute, but right now we're getting some reports that there have been at least 4 people injured and taken to area hospitals as a result of this fire. What's unclear at this point is whether those folks are firefighters or civilians who may have stayed in their homes. All we know at this point is that 4 people have been transferred. We don't know the extent of those injuries, but we got inside the fire lines right around 6 o'clock and found several people who were still at their homes, at their structures, trying to protect their own lands, whether they had help or not. To the ear, it sounds like a storm, but truth is seen. Keeping up is impossible.
It just keeps jumping, coming this way.
Even for the experts, what starts small takes off in seconds, pushing Forest Service crews out of this area.
So that's where we're going to focus our resources on, the structure protection. So
leaving Rick Rickett to fend for himself.
Anything you can do to just blade this line.
These flames, too much. His grader cutting his own new lines without much hope.
It's going to go over there and it's going to go around. I think they're trying to save that. This is my place. I'm just trying to keep from burning up.
Just up the road, about 400 yards, is Daryl Aiken's home.
You know, I'm just not going to leave, so I'm going to fight it out.
Not much to fight with here. That's why Michelle Bearden came back to get him.
Are you going to leave him here?
Yes, he's grown. I can't take him. I can't force him to leave.
The dogs don't have a choice.
I mean, yes, we did work hard on the house, but at the same time, I mean, you can't mess with Mother Nature.
As night falls, fire crews expect these flames to lay down, but what they will leave behind are the red-hot embers just waiting for a little wind to blow by and spark those flames yet again, without warning. So Daryl Aiken waits.
Unless it gets right here and I can't do anything about it, you know, I'll leave.
Night isn't the only thing coming. The storm is, too. Now, being so close to the fire line, it's very easy to see exactly how quickly this blaze grew. Just in the area where we were back there for about a half an hour or so, and we watched that fire blossom to seeming to be several hundred yards away from where we were and our position to literally right up against where we were standing in our area. We were in a very safe, defensible space area, kind of like a dirt pit of sorts with nothing burnable around us. So we were taking the precautions as best we could, but really to see the fire that close is very, very impressive. Back to you guys.
Jeremy, it looks like an inferno where you were standing a little bit earlier. You talked about people who were still there a few hours ago. Do you have a sense that most of the people are gone tonight?
Well, it's hard to tell because it's very sporadic. Back in the area where we were, it's not even paved roads. It's all just sort of, not even really gravel roads, just kind of dirt tracks going from building to building, structure to structure. They're all very spread out and it's very forested in that area. We did see several folks who were at their structures and they said they were planning to stay, but they all said that they did have a way to quickly get out if the flames got just too close.
All right, Jeremy Diesel live in Magnolia. Thank you.
All right, for a week now, we've been watching another fire, a stubborn wildfire, this one north of Huntsville.
Firefighters got that blaze under control. This is video from last week. Then tonight, a new fire flared up in the same area. It has now grown to 1,000 acres and destroyed 7 homes. Evacuations are underway along Dickey Loop, Hopewell, Birdwell, and Loma roads.
Of course, the dry, windy conditions is making it harder to contain all these wildfires.
Yeah, another present from Tropical Storm Lee. Chief Meteorologist Gene Norman is here.
And Gene, any chance Mother Nature will cut firefighters a break anytime soon? They sure need it.
Well, the good news is tonight the winds have relaxed a little bit. We saw gusts up to 25 miles an hour, but on our exclusive WeatherBug network right now, those winds are dying down in the 5 to 10 mile an hour range, but they could pick up a little bit to the 10 to 15 mile an hour range. And as you heard from Jeremy, all will take a little bit of wind to blow those embers around and perhaps spark new fires. Take a look at how dry it is as well as it was windier earlier today. This loop, which shows the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere, really accentuates the dry air indicated by this rust color. A front has moved through the day today and temperatures are starting to drop. The humidity levels are in the teens. Coming up, I'll show you how cold it'll be when you step out the door tomorrow. You may need a jacket. Also have the latest on the newest hurricane or the growing hurricane, Katia, out in the Atlantic. It's now Category 4. The full forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Gene. Governor Perry is back in Texas tonight after cutting short a campaign trip in South South Carolina to deal with these wildfires.
Texas has deployed a wide array of our assets. We got 15 single-engine air tankers out there. We've got 2 Chinook helicopters. We're talking inside about possibly getting some of our Department of Defense assets from Fort Hood.
It is a major effort. In addition to those resources the governor mentioned, 40 Texas Forest Service aircraft are helping fight the fires all across the state.
The biggest and the baddest wildfire, of course, is there in Bastrop, where the governor spoke today. Our live coverage continues next. We will take you to Central Texas, where unchecked flames have devoured nearly 500 homes.
To the west in Columbus, homeowners do what they can, one bucket at a time. And our viewers are sharing images taken from your front porch and even from schools. Up close and very personal, a look at Texas on fire next.
As the fires continue to burn tonight, we are getting a look at the pictures you have sent us.
Viewer Megan Engler took these pictures, look at that, just outside of Magnolia at a gas station there. Just look at all the billowing smoke.
Of course, the largest fire blazing tonight is in Bastrop County, where the fire line is 16 miles long.
Incredible, and that's where we find KHOU 11 News reporter Tiffany Craig tonight. Tiffany?
The Austin newspaper probably says it best. Its headline, most catastrophic day. And the people in Bastrop would absolutely agree with that. Hundreds of homes have been damaged in this fire, and for each home, there is a story. We found Dennis Kane on the back of his truck, just sitting.
I'm watching my house burn. What else can I do?
He and his wife Marge are Californians who retired in Bastrop, thinking they'd left the wildfires behind.
I live 1 mile from where it started, and it was coming right at me.
Dennis managed to grab all he could, even scooping up his precious Benji. The flames burned his house, along with more than 470 others, scorching 25,000 acres. This is the biggest wildfire in our bone-dry state. It even managed to bring the governor off his presidential campaign trail.
I have seen a number of big fires in my life. This one is as mean looking as I've ever seen.
Dennis is dealing with this disaster on his own. His wife Marge died last year of a heart attack.
One thing I regret not getting was my wife's ashes, because we were to be buried together when I go.
So maybe now you understand why Dennis doesn't want to deal with the crowds in a shelter. He's just out here, sitting.
Homeless now, yes. I don't know what else to say.
So even though Dennis decided not to go to a shelter, there are thousands of other people in this county who are there tonight. They are hoping and praying that somehow, some way, they get this massive fire out.
Tiffany, you said 25,000 acres, a fire line 16 miles long. Any idea how much of this blaze is under control?
I talked to someone from the fire service here just a short time ago, the Forest Service, and I asked him that very question, and he said maybe 5%, but probably not even that much. So at this moment, they're saying that none of it is contained. It is, in fact, the true definition of a wildfire.
5%. That is frightening. All right, Tiffany, thank you out in Bastrop tonight.
All right, let's head now to Colorado County. This is about 75 miles west of Houston along Interstate 10. A wildfire there burned nearly 1,800 acres, destroyed at least 7 homes, and is threatening to reignite.
It was devastating to see it. It was horrible. Just made me want to cry, because the reason why we like this property was because of the trees.
The wind keeps blowing and it keeps igniting the flames.
Wow, you hear from the people. We have seen the pictures, Gene. Hopefully we can get a break at some point for the sake of the firefighters and the residents.
Well, it looks like the winds are dying down, but they will pick up a little bit tomorrow, and it will remain very, very dry thanks to a front that moved through. That's the same front that's pushing the remnants of Lee away from us. Here they are. These remnants caused quite a bit of severe weather across portions of Georgia tonight, continues to threaten the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys. You see now the clear sky behind the front, high pressure building in and keeping us dry as well as cool. I want to show you how cool it's going to be tomorrow morning. Back to work, back to school for a lot of people, and you may grab a jacket or sweater. Look at this. When you wake up in the morning north of town, also where those fires are going on, temperatures being the low to mid 50s. That's right, 50s. You heard me right. 57 Humble when you wake up tomorrow morning. 58 Pasadena. 56 over in Katy. 61 downtown Houston. Along the coast, 70 degrees, but cool everywhere thanks to more of those northerly winds. During the afternoon tomorrow, lots of bright sunshine. But again, the winds may pick up a bit. Some of those embers may still fly around, and temperatures should stay below 90 for most everybody. Maybe Sugar Land gets to 90 degrees. Also Katy. We're forecasting 88, 89 degrees for highs tomorrow across the area. Clear skies across the city right now, but if you look to the north, you may start to see a bit of haze, and we may see that in the morning. Some of that smoke being pushed in from the northerly winds may give the sky kind of a hazy appearance first thing in the morning. We topped out today at 95. We may not see those kind of warm temperatures until possibly this upcoming weekend. We started out at 78. That's the current temperature at Bush Intercontinental Airport right now. Elsewhere across the area, we've got 79 for Conroe, 71 Huntsville, 73 in Columbus, so it is already cooling down quickly. 81 degrees even along the coast. 79 here at the KHOU studios. The air is still very dry. That humidity is only 25%, and we're going to see that dry air in place tomorrow. Again, may not have the strong winds that we've seen, but the dry air and the dry ground are certainly combinations that could allow a fire to spread very, very quickly. Meanwhile, Hurricane Katia has now intensified to Category 4 strength. It's moving to the northwest at 10, maximum winds of 135 miles an hour. The forecast still has it coming close to the U.S. by the end of the week, but then being curved away. And there's a new storm, or new developing storm, out here in the far eastern Atlantic. We'll keep an eye on that. That might become Maria later on in the week. For us, we'll start today nice and crisp and cool at 60 degrees. Light northerly winds pick up during the afternoon in about the 10 to 15 mile an hour range. But wow, what a big difference tomorrow is going to be. Forget about hot temperatures, barely making it to 90 with plenty of sunshine. Despite all that, the Norman number, not 10, but a 9, because we still need some rain. Don't forget you can follow the Norman number on twitter.com and the 7-day forecast. Look at that week. Mornings in the 60s right through the end of the week. Don't forget the first Texans home game Sunday. Roof will probably be closed. It'll still be kind of warm there at Reliant. But also what you don't see on that 7-day forecast is any chance of rain.
So you kind of give with one hand and take with the other. So
it's really sad.
Mixed forecast. All
Thank
right.
you, Jim.
Thanks.
Our live coverage of the wildfires continues next.
Reporters Jeremy Diesel and Alex Sands will update us from the fire in Montgomery and Grimes counties.
And we're still posting video and pictures online of all the Texas wildfires.
And then all of a sudden they would just explode in flames, and then it took about maybe 10 minutes and every one of those houses was going down.
It is the same story for hundreds of homes in central Texas, destroyed by flames so fast people hardly had time to get out.
Really devastating. Let's go to that huge fire that is closest to us. You see it there in Montgomery County, where so many neighborhoods have been evacuated.
Alex Sands is live at the command center in Plantersville, which is in Grimes County. And Alex, a long night ahead for everybody there.
For firefighters who have been for so many of the families evacuated from their homes, many of them are still here at this command post at the staging area wondering, when can we go home? When will we see what we have left of our homes, depending on just how bad this fire gets? It's been a frantic day for them. As you can see from these images, they have been, look at that. They have just been going from place to place, moving from area to area, backing away from this fire as it continues to burn here in these 3 counties in Grimes, Montgomery, and Waller counties. At last check, several dozen homes, upwards of 60, 70, possibly 80 or more evacuated. And the evacuation orders continuing to spread as this fire spreads. Certainly not out of the question to see more evacuations overnight, possibly into tomorrow. The fire itself spreading just as much, going from just over 100 acres at about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Now it's over 1,600 acres. And a big problem has been fighting the fire itself. Usually there are lakes in the area that firefighters can draw water from. The drought, those lakes are dry, as one person who evacuated told us earlier today, happened in his backyard.
I got 2 grandbabies to get out there, and I make them rake everything away from the house. It's all because it's so dry. Our lake is bigger than 20 acres, and it's dry. We may have 100 feet diameter left of water in there, so it's dry.
So just picture it, all these people here, all these families having to rush out, evacuate at a moment's notice, grabbing what they can. Many were going to shelters here in Montgomery and in Grimes County. Just got word that one of the shelters has closed at the community center. Everybody being told now to head to the high school. We'll have more on that coming up shortly.
All right,
that is the
thank you.
latest live from Grimes County. Land back to you.
Thank you, sir. We're continuing to keep an eye on developments with that very same fire.
Reporter Jeremy Diesel will have more on the evacuation and where those flames are heading now.
Right now, we're taking you behind the fire line of one of the many Texas wildfires.
Our Jeremy Diesel got to follow a crew into the flames as they fought to keep them from spreading. He is at a command center now in Magnolia.
Jeremy, what do they plan to do tonight?
Well, they're moving on. The crew that we ended up running into is from the U.S. Forest Service, and they were for a time trying to fight this blaze back in an area off of Mill Creek Road in Grimes County. While we were there, we watched those flames flare up to the tops of the trees 100 feet high, only to then see that crew pull out as quickly as they came in, saying that they needed to move on to do structure protection. That's because at that time, that crew had suggested that there were already at least 24 structures that had been destroyed, and there were many, many more threatened. In fact, there were so many structures threatened in this area that they had to move on to evacuation planning. Complicated, of course, because it's 3 counties total, but there are ways of taking care of those things and trying to get a hold of people as quickly as you can. We're joined by Captain Rand Henderson of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, one of the jurisdictions involved. How do you go about trying to race a fire like this and get people's attention?
Well, the big thing is communication. We communicate with Fire Command, and they tell us the areas that need to be evacuated. We start off by doing physical evacuations at the homes, and we also have technology available to us, such as reverse 911 we call Code Red.
And in that Code Red that was called for this fire, there's an awful lot of people being asked to evacuate.
Yeah, we're estimating between 6,000 and 8,000 that have been asked to evacuate their homes.
And there's no way really to estimate exactly how many of those may have gone, though, right?
Not really a hard count yet, but yes, the ones we did the physical evacuations went to their house. Most of them were compliant and did leave.
And those were areas that were really at risk?
Yes, highly at risk, and that's why we pull all of our personnel to go take care of that first.
Thank you much, Captain Henderson of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, one of the several jurisdictions here, 3 counties still working to get a hold of this fire. It will be burning through the night. They'll have their hands full again when the sun comes up in the morning. For now, live in Montgomery County, Jeremy Diesel, KHOU 11 News.
And we'll have more on the Texas wildfires coming up in just a moment.
KHOU 11 News, weather, traffic, and more on your smartphone. Download the KHOU 11 app today.
Now, more photos sent to us by 11 News viewers. This one was taken by Melissa Shear near Wallaceville. It shows a tower of smoke reaching high into the sky. In fact, some passengers on commercial planes telling us they could both see the smoke and smell the smoke tonight. Another viewer shot this picture from near Magnolia, and it gives you an idea of why Magnolia ISD schools are closed tomorrow.
Alex Sands joins us again from near Plantersville in Grimes County tonight. Alex?
Len, we've been watching these images all night long, but this really is a story about the people and just how many have been here at the staging area on FM 1774 for hours now, 7 hours, just watching and waiting and wondering what's going to happen to my home. That is the question everybody here is asking, bracing for what may be to come. And so as we take a look at images from the past 7 hours, this is where things stand right now. This fire going from just over 100 acres at 3 o'clock this afternoon to more than 1,600, covering Montgomery, Waller, Grimes counties. Hundreds of families out of their homes this hour. So far, some 20 homes have burned, a fire truck has burned, and at least 1 firefighter has been hurt fighting this fire. This is, as we've heard all day, a fire driven by just how dry these conditions are, by how fast that wind is blowing here. Adding to this challenge, of course, is the situation with the Texas Forest Service. So many fires in Texas that their resources are tied up across the state. That may change these coming days as the firefighting effort continues here in Grimes County, also getting some help from the U.S. Forest Service. As for what's ahead for many of the folks out tonight, they will eventually find a place to stay. Magnolia High School now the lone shelter being offered for folks here. Many are in their cars, but they're also invited to head there these next few moments. Could be a very long night for them too.
All right, Alex Sands live out in Grimes County near Plantersville. Thank you.
Yeah, our crews will be out in Montgomery County into the morning, keeping track of the evacuations and exactly where the fire is heading.
We are also keeping an eye on that massive wildfire out in Bastrop County, the largest in the state that has destroyed nearly 500 homes.
So a busy night ahead for firefighters as well as residents and our crews. You can always get up-to-the-minute information on the Texas wildfires anytime at KHOU.com.
Our crews will also have the latest updates on 11 News this morning, starting at 4:30. We hope to see you then. Have a good night.
Good night.
KHOU 11 is a part of BELO, listed on the New York Stock Exchange as BLC.